So we are going to start again the presentation. It's working. Yeah, it's working. Right? Try.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
You okay? Yes. So Alexander is going to present his work on the XML encoding.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, good afternoon. I'm Alejandro B. I'm going to present this humble project on putting some XML and TI tools online. So I'm going to try to describe the problem, the solution, some of our tools for automatic markup, visualization, if there is time, a brief demo of some proof of concept implementation and conclusions. So let's get into the problem. Well, the idea of this project came to my mind while teaching XML and TI workshops outside Spain. One of the usual problems that I had was that the necessary tools were either not installed or not properly installed at the time of starting the workshop, and that caused a lot of trouble, particularly when the tutorials were too short. So we thought, why not install a bunch of tools that could be used for an introductory course on a website. There are some of these tools for do XSLT transformations, but one day you find them, the other day you may not. It happens sometimes that those services are taken out of the web. So the main objective of the project was to build an online service with a collection of useful text processing tools as online services. For instance, tools related to XML documents, TI, DTDs, schemas, XSLT processing, XPath, HTML generation. Some tools of our own to graphically visualize markup vocabularies and document instances. Tools for automatic generation of TI or docbook, for instance. And the necessary tools to validate, verify well-formedness, pretty print, or improve or transform XML documents. And this objective, part of the main objective was to save time of software installation. So the target users are mainly PhD students or digital humanities students or for XML TI courses. So the target is teaching, also support beginners project that can start working with technology like this without installing anything. Also batch production can be, a server like this can handle the production of several files at a time using customizable pipelines, and can serve also as a testbed for testbed platform to test some experimental tools. Concerning the functionality, we thought we needed some file management functionality so that the users can upload, download, delete, modify, or rename files, editing and processing tools, and some sort of collaborative environment so that the students can work in groups. Also, some teaching facilities have not yet been implemented, like interactive examples, hands-on tools, and some help. Another of the targets of this design was that it should be easily maintainable and upgradable. I mean, one of the main objectives is that we can add new services very easily, quickly, and also detach those services whenever we want. And we wanted the tool to be scalable, both in the number of users and the tools. So let's see the current implementation on this. So the solution is based on a web server, able to run different types of tools, anything that can be run on the computer on filter fashion, that is, any program that can be run from the command line and accept one or more inputs, parameters, and produce one or more outputs. We follow the software as a service delivery model and a kind of model view controller architecture. We try to build a user-friendly front end. The part of the idea was that the user interface was simple, because some of the production editors that there are have too many options and are quite complicated for beginners. And also the no need for installation that I just mentioned. So basically the architecture is this. On one hand, we have the service modules that can be added or eliminated. An interface, the workflow-based wizard is meant to do customizable pipelines. This is not yet implemented. And the collaborative environment, which is partially implemented, containing the data files that are used in these processes. Okay, well, to make the tool user-friendly, we try to imitate things that we all know, like file management environments, like Google Drive or Dropbox or any file manager. Some of the interface that tries to resemble this. And some editing functionality, which at the moment is very simple, but trying to resemble some online editors. But in this case, having up to 3 parallel folders with 3 files, input, transformation, and output. That's basically the idea. Partial responsive design, since the target of this is not to work on a phone, and multilingual support. The platform now supports both English and Spanish, and other languages can be added. To simplify the maintenance and be able to easily add tools, basically this was the idea. We use some XML in this. So first, you have to put the executables, whatever you're going to use as a new module, somewhere in the server. Then edit a module's XML file that contains information about the following: how to launch the command, how to execute the command. We use that information to generate PHP or HTML or whatever is necessary to modify the interface. So the interface is modified automatically once the executable files are put there and necessary information is given. So the executable commands, the HTML form with parameters for each service. We're going to see that each service has, some of them, some don't need this, but some services have parameters that the user can customize or activate or whatever, and that form has to be generated as well. The multilingual interface, so we need the translation of all the messages or the information of the form. And some include files that say whether that action or that process should be included as a button in the toolbar or in some of the menus. Once this is done, we run an update modules style sheet that generates software that is located in different parts of the interface. So this is a way to make a link between external modules and a web application that can be modified very quickly. So in this way, one module may provide several services. For instance, if I add, just for an example, XML lint, we can use XML lint for validation, word formness. I think there's some XPath processing as well. So the same program can do several things, and one thing can be done also with several programs. For instance, we can pipeline several commands one after another, or we can have a form that allows you to choose which XSLT processor you want to try your XSL with. So that's the idea. So what I mean now is that one module does not mean one operation, but that one operation can be fulfilled by several modules, or the other way around. One module can provide several services. Okay. Concerning the collaborative environment, there are 3 types of users. Non-registered, registered, and the administrators, obviously. Non-registered users can upload information, but the information is deleted when the session ends. Registered users can leave information from one day to another. Basically, that's the advantage. The technologies used for the implementations were, well, the SAMP platform, that means Apache, MySQL, PHP, running on plus a Java runtime environment, because some of the tools are supported by Java on the server. We use Lazy Framework, which is a student's final project, a framework that was developed by one of our students to create web applications. It uses PHP, Ajax, HTML5. The CK editor for online test editing, which we find is Too simple, perhaps, but it's what we're using so far. And Bootstrap for the interface rendering. This is a list, but not very real, of possible tools to be integrated. We made this list at the very beginning. Some of these tools are obsolete, some others overlapping functions, so we didn't have to use them all, and we use others which are not on the list. But the important thing here is the kind of things we wanted to do: formatting, validation, graphic viewers, conversion, whatever. So this gives you an idea of the sort of things. Apart from these general tools, we have a few tools of our own, like transformations for automatic, or parsers for automatic markup. This is one example. This is a parser that converts extended multi-markdown to TEI. It's a prototype, it's not the final version. So we use some kind of extended markdown with an extended notation that allows you to encode metadata on the body of a document in a very simple way. So that is converted to an intermediate XML document containing all the information, and then an XSLT parser generates a proper valid TI document. So the idea of this is to very quickly, because this is very easy to format. You see, this is the metadata part. In this case, this is not Markdown, this is something different. We use this kind of tags for the metadata. And this allows us to generate a TA header of this kind. So basically, the idea is to save time and effort. So you have to do this to obtain something like this. And also to avoid all the not valid messages in between the time you begin encoding the document and you have the first valid version. And for the body of the text, this is plain Markdown, basically. So we have in this example a heading here. Well, this is a little different, the document author, but all the rest are paragraphs separated by blank spaces, as in tech. And this generates the front and the body of a document. This project was meant to do some simple TI encoding. TI is a very large and complex vocabulary, so this is basically for prose, verse, poetry, and also drama, including a cast list, but it's not meant to do anything more complex than that. This is a poetry example. So we have Markdown with some other things. If you indicate that this chunk of lines is a line group, it is converted to a line group, and each line is marked as a line. So this is the TI version of lines of verse. Okay, and concerning visualization, we also have some tools of our own. I'm very fond of a tool called FreePlane, which is a MyMap tool, a fork of FreeMind. And the good thing, one of the good things, there are several, but one of the good things of the tool is that it saves the diagram as an XML file. So it's easy to generate those files, and it's easy to parse those files to generate something else. And we use this for several things. Even these slides, for instance, are generated from a FreePlane MyMap generating HTML. But we use this to generate MyMaps from DTDs or from schemas or from document instances. This is an example of the MyMap itself as a document instance seen with a MyMap. Okay, so this is basically a MyMap is a map structure containing nodes, and those nodes contain attributes about background color and whatever. I have more examples. This, for instance, is an XML schema rendered using this approach. The thing is, the usefulness of this is not just to create the graphic, because in a complex schema, the graphic is unusable. But when you use it with the tool has some folding and unfolding properties that allow you to expand and collapse parts of the diagram, which makes it more useful. And you can also click and link from one node and move to another, for instance. We're going to see, if there is time enough, a short demo on this. Well, this is another example, more or less the same thing. These are document instances generated using the same idea. So you see that at the end of the tree, we find the text. Okay, and now let's go for a demo. This is we call it DHW, Digital Humanities Workbench. The file management part of the workbench. We have here folders and files. And the common operations for file management, which some are activating depending on, or deactivated depending on what you choose. For instance, let's go here to this one. Here I have a file in this down-tay format, Markdown, extended Markdown to generate TI, and I'm going to open it. So this is the editor. It's very simple. The editor is very simple. And for instance, if I click in the multi-markdown to TI, we wait a few seconds, and here we have a TI document generated from this extended Markdown notation. You see on the top, the metadata, and down is just paragraphs and some titles. So in this way, we get a valid document very easily. In fact, I use this to generate the docbook version of the article, of the paper. I mean, I don't have yet a conversion for docbook. I know there is. I've seen in the literature somebody already did a Markdown to docbook the conversion. But what it is, converted to this, and I took advantage of all the paragraphs, just rename, find out, replace P to para and all that, and I had the thing done very quickly. This is another example. We can choose here one file, one transformation, open the thing. So we have three folders. The first is the XML file, the second is the transformation. If I go to the XML file, I click on, can be Saxon 6, or Saxon, a more modern version for XSLT 2.0 if needed. It's not needed in this case. I generate an HTML version, the HTML conversion of this file, and I can preview it also. It's not an amazing format, but you see that the document has been converted to HTML. There is pretty printing, validation, you see, Usefulness. We can do some basic XPath, like for instance, counting the number of rows. So there are 19 different characters in display, or we could also see the cast items. Well, I should have done this from the other. Yes. Yeah. Okay, that was an error. Yeah, because I want to see them all. I put it in plural. Okay, so here we have the list of cast items. That's it. Okay, and we can, for instance, generate a MyMap from this document instance. And this is a MyMap. There are limitations in this. Now I could not find at this time a web-based visualization of this kind of MyMap. So I generate the MyMap. The MyMap has to be downloaded and has to be opened with FreePlane. Well, in fact, if I go to FreePlane, here I have examples of this kind of MyMaps. For instance, this is a very simple example of a mail message, you know, the information of a message. And if you open it all, and this is a very small example, the diagram can be very complex. But the good thing is not the static diagram, but the possibility of opening parts of the diagram. And then when you get to the elements contained in the content model, you can jump to another element. So you can, in a complex diagram, this is useful because you don't have to open the whole thing, which gets overlapped and is difficult to understand, but you can navigate and open and close parts to get an understanding of the structure. For instance, in this one, I have the TI var, which is only 19 elements. And if I open the whole thing, well, it becomes incredibly big, you see. And it's only 19 elements. If we put here the whole TI, which is more than 500, you can imagine. So this approach converts a graph, but basically it's a list of trees, and each tree has links. But we are using a list of trees, and each tree can be collapsed. So that's the advantage of the thing. So what else? Okay, going back to the slides now. Conclusions. The online platform serves to integrate some interesting tools, plus others not covered in this presentation. This is just a proof of concept demo. Future work, well, this has been implemented. It was working on a beta website called chaos.umh.es, our testing server, but it's no longer there. It's going to appear in a few weeks or months in w.umh.es. Things to do in the future. Well, convert some things which have been designed as proof of concept prototypes to stable production versions, to add pipelining and batch production, which is something I've been doing extensively. Many years ago, working for the Miguel de Cervantes Digital Library, we processed thousands of XML, literally, documents in batch mode, and this is something that a server can do in the distance. And I'll try to explore XProc for this purpose. I found very interesting the workshops of a couple of days ago, both for containers and for building pipelines. Improve the collaborative environment, optimize client-server interaction with a better technology like React, Angular, Ionic. Those are the technologies to try, probably React. Concerning automatic markup, include docbook in the Markdown to XML generation. And what else? Concerning visualization, well, we need a way to visualize those MyMaps on the browser. There were some applets and some applet plugin and Flash plugins some years ago that were able to display free MyMaps. They are obsolete, either the technology or have not been maintained. Those things doesn't work anymore. So we need something else, or just move to some different kind of diagram, some online-based technology, or generate scalar vector graphics. Some solution we have to find for this. And that's all. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you very much. So we have a few minutes for question. Sid, over there.
Thank you, Alejandro. I'm looking forward to starting to play. But so the big picture, the first big picture question has to do with your premise, with the motivation behind doing this, which I'm questioning. I don't think you're correct about it, but it doesn't mean I don't think you should do this. I think it's a different issue. I'm not sure why that was your motivation. But my experience has been that, and I suspect others in the room might have had similar experiences if you teach XML languages to people, that that the motivations you described are almost seem like outdated motivations. That 10 years ago, a good portion of every workshop was spent with the technology of getting people to install the right software properly. And nowadays, most people install most things. I ask them once and it's done, and that's it. It's all over. And it's just not much of a problem anymore. I don't know if that's because I'm dealing with a younger audience, or if because we've gotten better at making software installers, or what the deal is. But it doesn't seem to me to be a problem.
Well,
Now.
The motivation was just some real cases. I find places where I find the oxygen and everything perfectly installed and the proper computers, and some cases where people bring their laptops or there are computers where nothing is installed, or there are several different operating systems. So some tools work in Windows and others don't work in Apple computers. So in this way, at least I have something that with a browser and a web connection, they can follow the exercises, do some XPath, some XSLT processing, and follow the exercise with this. So I still find the problem, not everywhere, but in some cases I do. I've been teaching some workshops. When you teach a 2-hour or 3-hour tutorial or workshop in India, and you don't find the tools, it's very good to have something simple like this. In fact, I started using XSLT converters that were already on the web, but one day I go there and I try to connect and the service disappeared without notice, so I prefer to have my own. So that was the origin of the idea, but can be used for so I think, yes. Somebody has a question there.
Yes, another question over there. Is it you're finished or you? Okay.
Up there, yes.
Can you bring? Yeah. That's fine, sir.
Thank you. Well, my opinion is just contrary that the last one. I mean, I've found this problem again and again. And just 1 month ago, the TI mailing list wondered how would they create a platform exactly as the one that Alejandro is presenting today. So I think it's got lots of uses for the first taste of XML. Of course, afterwards, one would need something more robust, of course. But for the first time, when you introduce a student to what XML is, this, I find it very, very useful. So thank you, Alejandro.
Well, thanks for your comments. That was basically the idea. So first taste of an introductory view of XML, and also to test other tools of our own that we want other people to try without having to download, install, or having to distribute something that is not completely finished. But, you know, so that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.